Welcome into the I-80 Boys College Football Show. We got a Georgia versus Texas preview video. Chris was the resident Georgia fan here. I'll start us off. Look, Georgia, very weird right now that it's 5-1. And I want to kind of start with talking about the offense and some of the things that's affected us. All right, starting at the offensive line. Been banged up, dealing with injuries there. There's been times where it just hasn't looked good. And frankly, I'm going to be very honest. Georgia hasn't really been able to go to their bread and butter, which is running the football, right? Normally you see Georgia gashing these long runs. I feel like a lot of that has been injuries and guys coming in and out of that backfield, guys either not hitting the hole the right way, or even if they pick the right hole, like you go back to the Kentucky game where there's guys living in the backfield where Kentucky literally out-physicaled Georgia at the line of scrimmage and really limited them. And I think all of that translates into Carson Beck. And what is Carson Beck? And what is this offense, right? Because coming into this year, it was being said that Beck, could potentially win the Heisman. And Beck should be the number one overall draft pick, at least a first-round draft pick as a quarterback. I mean, he's got good numbers, 1,800 yards, 15 touchdowns, limited the turnovers a little bit. But to me, I don't know if it's an issue of Mike Bobo in the play calling and being very conservative and trying to kind of take the Ferrari on the interstate and not really, and just go the speed limit, not go up to 120 miles an hour and let that thing open up, not let Beck try to throw the football down the field and get in rhythm early and often. Or is Beck just not that great of a thrower of the football down the field? Because I get what he did against Mississippi State. I understand that. He looked good. I understand what he did in the second half of the Alabama game, but you start kind of looking back at this and you start saying, man, he doesn't always hit on some of those long throws where you need him to play that conservatively in these games. And I think that affects a lot of the things that we're seeing with this Georgia offense. I want to talk about something else. Chris, Georgia's top two wide receivers going into this season was Colby Young and Ra Thomas. Those were their top two options coming into this year at the wide receiver position. When you lose guys like McConkey, when you lose guys like Bowers off to the NFL from last year, it really kind of sucks when they no longer are on the team. And that's exactly, we're not going to get into all of that stuff. You can look that up, what allegedly happened or anything. We're not going to talk about that. But losing those two guys, now you've got to, it's next man up. And it's like the Kansas City Chiefs. If Travis Kelce goes down and Rashee Rice go down, which Rashee Rice has done for the year, but if Kelce goes down, where does Mahomes go to the ball? The offense kind of goes out of rhythm a little bit. And it's going to take them time to figure that out. With Colby Young being out, and you're going to play the number one team in the country in Texas, it's not going to be that great. Now, you're going to talk about this Texas defense here in a bit, and I can't wait to hear about that. I'm sure we'll open it up. We'll kind of have some conversation there, but I want to throw it over now to the defensive side of the ball for Georgia. And that is where their bread and butter has been at since Kirby has taken over this program. Chris, this year, this is the worst a Georgia defense I feel like has looked in a while, right? And it starts with injuries up front. Okay, there's a lot of guys up front, whether it be Michael Williams, Warren Brinson, Smile Munden, one of the middle linebackers there, who've just been hurt and banged up and, just haven't really been able to play, and they've kind of been out of their rhythm. And so you've gotten a lot of second, third string guys that normally you would put into these positions of the game who are coming in having to take snaps, which is good. You've got a lot of young guys getting snaps for us, but, it's only good if you can keep winning. And in a game like this, you got to be as healthy as you possibly can and have that confidence. The thing that I've seen from Georgia, the way they looked against Bama, Bama blew them off the ball. They didn't even make adjustments until halftime. And even then it was like too little too late, basically, because you spotted them however many points, up until that point. And Mississippi State was able to do some things and expose them. I felt like the thing when I'm used to seeing Georgia is, guys in the middle. When you go back to those championship defenses that Georgia had, they had Jalen Carter. They had a big number 99, Davis there in the middle for us. I don't know why his name is escaping me, but you know what I'm saying? Jordan Davis. Yes, thank you. Gosh, I don't know why. Brain fog today. So, you had those two guys that were able to get that push up front and basically command double teams, giving your edge rushers those one-on-one things. I think now we've got guys that are just You know what I mean? Like they're not pushing the pile back, and it's just they're letting things come to them. So you're letting that physicality come to you. And I think that's affected it. Now, on the outside there, you've got really young cornerbacks. The back end of the secondary is, where the strength of this team is at, but the cornerbacks are still pretty young. So if you can't generate pressure and get to the quarterback early and often and limit him and shut down the running game of these teams, you are in for a long night, especially against Texas. We know what Texas has the best wide receiver core probably in the country. It's got to be up there anyways. Georgia is going to be in trouble if they cannot make Quinn Ewers' life a living hell. If they let him sit back there and be, a 7-on-7 clinic, they're in for a long night. And I would just say all of that to basically say Georgia coming into this, Chris, is a team that looks like they're losing confidence, week in and week out. And they need a big game here in order to get that confidence back. If they lose this week, I hate to say it, I think the season's pretty much over.
Yeah. Man, no, you said a lot there. It was a good breakdown of Georgia. Obviously, if anybody knows, it's you. Yeah, with Texas here, I'll talk about Texas. I'll run through some stats here like I normally do. But, Texas is favored in this game. Last I looked by about 3.5. So, yeah, if they played on a neutral field, this is basically a pick 'em. So, like I said, Vegas, the public's usually pretty close on these. But offensively, you said it. Texas is averaging 43.2 points per game. That's 7th best in the country. They're 7th in total offense, 40th in rushing offense, 11th in passing offense. So, yeah, last week, Quinn Ewers, he played well against OU. He was 20 of 29 for 200 yards and a touchdown. He didn't have to do anything in that game. That game was over before it started. Let's just be honest, call it what it is. Sorry, Oklahoma man. But, yeah, that game wasn't even close. Now, with both backs, and they had a ton of injuries to start the season at the running back position, Christian, Wisner and Jadon Blue, man, these guys have both looked really good this year. They filled in very, very well. They both have 6 touchdowns combined on the season. You mentioned it. The wide receiver room is loaded. They got Isaiah Bond. You remember him, obviously. They got Ryan Wingo, Matt Golden, and then the tight end, even Gunnar Helm. He's a stud, too. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about how great Texas's offense is. We know it's elite, and I have no questions about them whatsoever. Now, defensively, this is what's impressed me so far this season with Texas. They're only giving up 6.3 points per game. That's number 1 in the nation. They're also number 1, obviously, in total defense, 23rd against the run, and they're number 2 against the pass, which is pretty damn impressive. They only give up 126 yards a game through the air. That's elite. And like I said, they've been very active up front. They got 18 sacks on the year. That's top 15 in the country. As far as this game goes, you talked about the Georgia side of it. This is going to be by far and away Texas's toughest test so far to date. No doubt about that. Michigan, man, not even close. That game wasn't close. Oklahoma wasn't close. So, yeah, this is so hard for me because I am obviously very high on Georgia. I was all year. Right now, with what I've seen, just pure eye test. And like I mentioned, Texas hasn't played the toughest teams. I mean, I think we can both agree that Georgia's played a tougher schedule so far. Georgia's just both sides of the ball. It's varied from week to week. You know what I mean? The defense looks great one week, like against Clemson, and then last week against Mississippi State. They give up 30 points. By the way, Christian, that's the first time Georgia's given up 30 points at home in like a bazillion years. I mean, that's shocking to me under a Kirby Smart-led team. So with that being said, man, I'm going Texas here. The fact that they're at home, I think, does help. I got Georgia 27, Texas 30.
Yeah, Chris, I've got Georgia 31, Texas 38. Like you said, I mean, it's about confidence at a certain point when it comes to college football. And unless Georgia comes out and finds that confidence going into this week, I think Texas wins. And yeah, I mean, let's just be, hopefully if you're Georgia, there is no such thing as moral victories. We all understand that. Whether you lose a game by a touchdown or 4 touchdowns, you still lose the game. We don't care about that. It's about who wins. And obviously we'll see about that on Saturday at 6:30.